Welcome to this week's episode of Why Not Both, sponsored by Under the Radar magazine. We are a podcast that explores how our multiple passions inform our identities. My name is Pam Schaefer, and I'm a musician and therapist in Los Angeles. For this week's episode, we actually got to go to Iceland Airwaves in Reykjavik, which was absolutely amazing. Not only is it an amazing music festival, but the city itself is just so wonderful, and it was such just a fantastic opportunity to get to explore all these new venues and artists, as well as all the nooks and crannies of the city, and really test the power of the windproof coat that I got. The wind is not messing around there. So if you like what you hear on our podcast, you can like us and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. You can also join us on social media. We are at WNB, the podcast, on Instagram as well as on Twitter. My first interview for this episode is with the artist Madam Gandhi, and we got to record in the basement of Fisher, which is an absolutely beautiful perfumery as well as art experience in the heart of the city. And they very kindly lent us their basement in their gorgeous home that was built in 1873. I hope you enjoy.
This so cool. I've never seen anyone use Ableton Live for a podcast, so that's really sick.
Right? This is so typical of me that I'm just like, of course I'm being the most extra to record a podcast.
No, I love it. Are you a Virgo? Is that why you're saying that?
Hilariously, I'm an Aquarius.
Amazing.
So it's just like, oh, are you going to do something a different way? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Love it. Are you January or February?
February.
Beautiful. I'm February too.
What's your birthday?
21st.
Oh, you're Pisces. You're shortly after me on the 17th.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, beautiful.
Oh.
That's beautiful. I have a lot of good friends who are right there. My uncle's the 17th. I just traveled with someone who's the 17th. It's beautiful.
We're like right on that cusp. Oh, that makes me so happy.
Hell yeah.
So the first question that I usually ask everyone is, what do you do? And is there a better question to actually ask?
I play the drums and make music that elevates and celebrates feminine voices. And I would say a better way to ask the question is, what are you passionate about?
Oh, I love that. What are you passionate about?
I'm passionate about making other people feel joyful. I'm passionate about encouraging everyone to step into the fullest of their potential, including myself. I'm passionate about teaching folks that guilt is a wasted emotion and that we should actually take the things that we've been privileged to have and use it to make the world a better place.
I love that. Guilt is a wasted emotion. That's fantastic. How do you express that in your music, do you feel?
I think being brave enough to say, yes, I've been given the chances to play my drums when many, folks may not be able to do that because of time constraints or financial constraints or whatever it is. Because the music industry and playing music is actually a very front-loaded financial endeavor. I mean, that's why most people have to sign to labels, because you need money up front to invest in something in order to even generate returns on it.
Right.
And so the way I was able to do that for myself was sort of doing small consulting projects and public speaking gigs that would fund my own work to then put it back into making songs and music videos and things like that. But I think the way that I embody this notion that guilt is a wasted emotion is simply by saying, drumming and DJing and producing music is something that gives me a lot of joy, and how do I use that joy as a fuel to ignite other people's happiness? And I've been going into the prison system twice a month and teaching beat making and DJing to incarcerated youth.
Wow, what's that experience like?
It's so powerful. In the beginning I was very excited about it, and there were one or two tough experiences where you get pushback because the kids in the juvenile hall are like, no one gives a fuck about us, what are you doing here? Like, they don't want someone to come in and make them feel like charity, obviously. Like, who would ever want that?
Right, and it's also hard if people aren't, like, caring for you to then take in care. It sounds like it's very foreign.
100%.
Yeah.
And also, like, tough behavior is what keeps you alive in a prison system, you know? But I've also learned, being on the other side, that I love when someone who's really good at what they do just comes and shares their happiness with me on a human to human level.
Yeah.
So I really tried to take that as my base level for operation. So when I go in, I'm like, listen, this is something that I've been working on this week. What y'all think? Do you love it? Do you hate it? And one time I came into the prison system wearing a shirt that's my new merch line. They did a collaboration with a local LA brand called Us by Design, and the shirt says, let boys be feminine. And I wore it because I knew it would start up some interesting conversation. You know, I love treating the boys not like I have something to teach them, but that we both have something to teach each other.
Yes.
I might be older, big sister status, so I've lived more years on the earth, but I love going in as a mutual exchange. And so I wore that shirt knowing it would strike up a conversation.
Yes.
And I actually thought the conversation would be negative. You know, I thought they would be like, because the last time we were in the prison, we talked about why do we use the words like girly and feminine and gay as an insult. You know, we challenged the boys on that. So this time around I wore it. And the first thing that happened was this young boy was like, Miss, I love that shirt. I love that shirt. You know why? Because I'm feminine. Oh. And I was like, oh my God, what a sweetheart.
And you're like, I see you.
I see you. And he loved the shirt. And then he was like, Miss, you know what my my artist name is? And I was like, yo, what's your artist name? And he's like, it's Best Intentions. And I was like, whoa, that's amazing. And he's like, you know why it's Best Intentions? And I was like, why? And I thought he was going to say something like, because I want the best for everybody. He said that the initials of Best Intentions are B.I., and that he identifies as bi.
Yes.
And I was like, the fact that you're so brave to say that in a system that is deeply toxically masculine is such a testament to your own personal power as a young person. And it really, really touched me and inspired me. So this is the whole thing with guilt is a wasted emotion. Like if I went in being like, oh, well, I don't want to insult them and I don't want to make them feel bad, so I'm going to like dim my own light to like make them feel good. That's not what they're about. You should come as yourself and let them come to you as themselves. And that's always been the times when the interactions are the most empowering.
Yeah, because it sounds like, when you said it to me, it sounds like it was provocative in the way that it would provoke people to think and feel and connect with you.
Totally.
Yeah, and I was like, wow. And I was thinking when you said that, I was like, who inspired you to do that? Like, who are the people in your life that you saw their light and you're like, oh.
I think I pay a lot of attention to things that inspire me in general. I think as someone who's studied women's studies and is passionate about gender liberation, I'm always paying attention to what are kind of like the pulses of the times. And I had seen so many feminist slogans when I ran the London Marathon, bleeding freely on my menstrual cycle, and that story went viral. But it was the phrase, the future is female, that spoke to me more than anything, because it positioned femininity as something that was aspirational, as opposed to teaching us to constantly catch up to what the men are doing.
Oh.
And so I think it's usually phrases where I find femininity as something that is desirable that tend to inspire me, as opposed to things that teach us to masculinize or perform masculinity in order to be accepted.
Like the whole like strong woman trope and things like that.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Or like the fact that like strength is even something that we're aspiring to. Like of course we should all aspire to strength, but usually we're always like, see, she's a badass woman, see, she's a strong woman. Like you're never gonna be like, oh, see, he's a strong man. Like it's a little cheesy, you know?
Exactly.
It's taken for as a default.
And there's strength in nurturing, and there's strength in kindness, and there's strength in so many different aspects
and that's exactly
what
what the messaging behind the Madame Gandhi project is about.
Got it. And that makes sense, because I was going to ask you how it dovetails with your music and with your activism, but it sounds like the two are almost intrinsically tied together.
It is, and I think for me, my music project is a little bit different than others in the sense that I started making music with the intention of using it as a medium to make change. Instead of what happens very often, which is that folks make their music and then sort of take on an activist career later in their life when they've already become famous. So for me, my music is very much an intentionally chosen medium through which to convey a difficult message, because music caters to the emotions.
I love that. Do you, like, I know that you said that obviously you're in the prison system teaching them. Do you teach music elsewhere? Like, do you teach workshops? It's
a great question. I used to give lessons and things like that, and I do enjoy it, but I do think that I do really well when I'm in front of a large audience. I really feed off of their pulse. And so I love taking my message and my passion and using it as an opportunity to teach, but I love doing it in a larger setting. I love being able to deliver keynotes. I love being able to have large audiences of kids. I love involving them. I just gave a big keynote speech in Indore, a city in India, at a conference called Round Square for 700 high school kids from all around the world. And I was one of their 3 keynote speakers throughout the conference, and at the end of the speech I invited whoever raised their hand to come and dance with me on the stage for one of my songs, and they just loved it. Like the first couple kids were brave, they raised their hand and got chosen. Then they realized, oh, this is fun, this is safe, I can do this too. And then everyone was raising their hand, you know? And that in itself is sort of like a meta way to teach. It's like, be first, go first, you know? I read that somewhere, actually. Someone was like, sometimes we pass people on the street and we don't smile because we're afraid of the rejection that they won't smile back. But, like, they're afraid of you rejecting them, so...
And seeing someone else, like, kind of putting yourself forward so that other people see that it's safe. Because I think 100%. That that's a big part of when you said, like, especially as music is very front-loaded financially, I think that also it's sometimes very front-loaded representationally. Mm-hmm. So if you don't see someone that's like you doing what you want to do,
you won't be brave enough to do it.
Exactly, because you think, like, you're like, how do I do that?
Totally.
Do people like me do that?
Totally. And I think the way to even get, men and folks who are masculine of center, like, part of the mission and part of the movement of feminism is actually to, like, encourage us as women and femmes to shine in our own light. Because when we are doing things that allow us to feel confident and our best selves, it's easier for men and folks who have typically been in the oppressor category to come around and be part of our journey and be part of our mission and want to align with us. Anytime that I found myself complaining or sort of crying from disempowered anger, it's much harder for me to convey the exact same message than when I've done the work to make sure that I'm in a healthy, happy, positive place. And I'm saying the exact same thing, but it's much more received because it's coming from an empowered place.
I was going to say it's the emotion behind what you're saying.
Yes.
And how did you get into some of the consulting? Because as we were talking about that, you said that ended up funding a lot of your art. How did you get into doing that?
Well, I went to Harvard Business School.
I'm like, can we high five? Is that going to be too loud on the mic?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's interesting because Harvard Business School is the breeding ground of the capitalist patriarchy, and I think I sort of knew that, but I didn't actually know that until I went through the program. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of personal highs and lows for me. You know, the first year I was simultaneously touring as the drummer for MIA during her Tangy tour, which was really powerful, and I loved it. And it almost shielded me from a lot of the, like, problematic aspects of social culture at a place like Harvard. You know, just bougie behavior, you know, renting out big boats and stuff to do nothing. And I am critical of that. I'll always be very vocal about that because it's a waste. It's like when you have privilege, instead of pretending it doesn't exist or like hiding it away and just secretly partying, I think it's so much more amazing to be like, yeah, I do come from a place of privilege and sort of higher, quote-unquote, higher education in a place like Harvard. What can I do to make the world better? And of course, Harvard teaches that, you know, they really do. But at the same time, they also are a business entity, so they do need folks who are going into the big, wealthy consulting and banking jobs to come back and fund the program. And I understand that from a practical perspective. But yeah, my second year, I remember thinking, how do I really take everything that I love about this education and use it for good and sort of like protect myself from the aspects of this that I don't really resonate and connect with. So the good aspects, we're learning things like emotional intelligence. Like, can you read the body language of the folks that you're intending to lead? Can you be self-aware as a leader? What can you ask yourself about how your strengths and weaknesses are operating in a business context? I think those aspects really spoke to me. Another strategy and sort of lesson we learned was this concept of blue ocean strategy, where instead of trying to go into the quote-unquote red ocean where everybody else is competing, how do you identify unique advantages that you have that nobody else has that can be doubled down on to make a really unique business entity operating in the same industry. And so taking those things and then being able to say, hey, I'm equipped to consult for music companies. I did a project for Spotify. I did a project for D'Addario, which is a drum and guitar company. I did a project for TomTom Magazine. I did a project for one other company that I remember that I loved doing it. What was it? I've done so many of these projects. I actually did one for the Grammys. It was really cool. They had a business plan competition, which was really, really awesome. I did one for the Recording Academy. So yeah, these different types of projects really flex my muscles as a critical thinker in the music industry, but also simultaneously allowed me to fund my own music. And every person actually can do that. It's not about going to business school. That's not really the lesson from this part of the podcast. The lesson is, how do we be smart and self-identify all the different skill sets that any of us have as a human, and think how can we employ those skill sets in an efficient way to then fund other aspects that we're even more passionate about.
Well, and I think that also in regards to identity, there are some people that feel that if they are funding their music through something that is not directly the creation of music, that somehow they're doing it wrong, or that something is flawed, or that their music's not good enough. And I think that we have this false narrative around that if you're an artist, that's all you do, when in fact, like, people have so many strengths.
Always.
And when you were talking about that in regards to capitalism, I spoke to an Icelandic artist yesterday that it was fascinating speaking to someone that was almost in a way outside of the American capitalist system about that they had no shame about doing other jobs. And one of the things they brought up was how understanding their colleagues were about the fact that they do both. Whereas it's so fascinating that in America, we do have to think about, all right, well, if I want to make this art, how do I fund it?
Of course.
And it's so different coming from a place of, like, them people who feel shame that they have to fund it.
Totally. You're so right. You're so right. I think that's exactly true. And I think for me, the way I always tried to combat that was just to say, how do I at least stay within the industry of the thing that I'm trying to fund? Like, I didn't want to consult for random companies, even though theoretically the Harvard Business School degree does prepare you to be able to consult for all types of industries.
Yeah,
in fact,
yeah.
sometimes when you come from a different industry, it's even more rewarded because you're thinking about the industry you're consulting for in a totally different way.
Right.
But I wasn't interested in that. I said I want to consult for music so that the kinds of people I'm meeting and networking with are in the very industry that I'm eventually trying to break into.
Right.
So I think, the more we can think about how to employ our skill sets to allow us to stay in the industry we're passionate about, that's the most compelling success story.
And I also really liked what you said about in regards to privilege, because I think when people hear the word privilege, either they see it in terms of oppression or they see it, if they are privileged, as an insult. And I don't think that privilege is an insult. It's an acknowledgement of your place.
100%. I think the reason
It's
why people
like-
don't like it is because they think instantly that the person who's saying you're privileged is negating the accomplishments that they have made.
Yes.
And I think it's both. It's yes and. Like for me, even speaking English is a privilege.
Yes.
The fact that my parents have education beyond a high school degree is a privilege. Many immigrant families who come into the States from abroad often lack higher education. But it's a privilege that my two immediate parents both held MBAs. So for me, as a kid, it's a natural progression to want to aspire to the same level of high school education.
Exactly.
So if someone's like, yeah, but you come from a position of privilege, I have to look at myself and say, okay, I can either take that as an insult, like they're negating my ambition and my success, or I can say, yes, I had this leg up, and I'm doing my best to work my ass off to step into that privilege, learn everything I can, so that I can make the world a better place.
Exactly, because it sounds like what you're doing with your privilege is similar, like, same thing. My parents both they're both retired lawyers. And so same thing where I come from a family with higher education. And so with that, I always think, I'm like, okay, I lucked out. How do I help people with this?
Totally. Yeah, I think it's that. The irony, though, is that, like, sometimes when I listen to other folks talk about their privilege, whether it's men doubling down on gender privilege or Caucasian folks talking about white privilege, it's ironic because I always want people to acknowledge it, and then when I listen, sometimes they, like, go down too far the list of, like, the good things they have going on in their life. Like, you listen to politicians speak, even in this last Democratic debate that I saw, and, one of the leaders from Seattle, I think he's the governor, obviously someone had written this for him, and it was actually well delivered, and people really received it. But my personal criticism was, like, he said, I've never had to experience what it's like for someone to stop me over for driving because of the color of my skin. I've never had to experience what it's like to not be let into a restaurant because I'm a queer person. I've never had to experience what it's like to be turned down for a job that I think I'm equally capable of, compared to my male counterpart. And he was, like, going down this list of, like, all the privileges that he does have, and I was like, bruh, like, what are you gonna do about it,
Yeah, you're like, that's nice,
yeah,
but...
Exactly. So I think, we have to kind of be so confident and so secure about where we come from, but be way more vocal about what it is we're going to do with it.
Right, and I think that in a lot of ways, like, in some ways this podcast is about amplifying the voices of people who do multiple things, and about how to inspire others and to give voice to people that aren't just, white dudes.
Totally.
Not to discount white dudes, but...
No, but the whole system is designed for white cis men to thrive and succeed, and so that's why anybody else who's outside of those gender or, like, identity identifiers will have a more difficult time.
Exactly, and so giving people, not like a rubric, but giving people inspiration of how they can achieve multiple things and how they can delve into multiple fields. And I was wondering, I was like, how did you juggle touring and business school and even now doing all of the activities you do with music? Like, how do you sleep?
I love being asked this question because recently I haven't been sleeping. We've been working our asses off, and I think when you're managing your own project, at the end of the day, I can be frustrated with folks I work for if they don't fully, do their job. But I never really blame anybody else. I always know it's on me, and at the end of the day, a good leader will take full responsibility for their own ship. And I think when I was younger, I just wanted to do what I loved, and I thought it was like way more cool to be able to be drumming for MIA in the evenings rather than like socializing with other folks who are really trying to break into like banking and consulting, which has nothing to do with me. Right. But then also in the daytime, instead of sleeping in all day like many folks or that I would be doing if I was not at school, I would be sleeping in the daytime. To be using that time to be learning whatever I can about the business world so that I'm equipped with all the tools that I need. I think I just knew that it would be a source of self-empowerment. And the more we invest in our own skill sets, the more we are equipped to come up against oppression and speak truth to power and speak wisely about these different things. And then I think now it's the same, sis. It's just about being so stoked on whatever it is that I'm doing. Like, I'm so overwhelmed to come to Iceland. Like, I barely packed my bag and closed the last zipper before the Uber had come,
Yes, I so feel you on that. I left
like,
at 7 a.m. on Tuesday and arrived at 6 a.m. on Wednesday and was just like, did I just time travel? What planet am I on?
Right? It felt overwhelming, and then I'm here and I'm like, oh yeah, like, this is so awesome. This is why we do everything, because we perform.
Yes.
And I hadn't performed in a while because I've been getting ready for my new album, which just dropped, Visions.
Hey, congratulations.
And, thank you. And so then now that I'm here, I'm like, oh yeah, this is why we do everything. To make new music and perform it for folks who will really inspire.
Exactly.
So I think that's how we balance it.
In completely mystical locations. Yeah. Like, I've got to say, there's no place like this place. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of, I know that especially at Airwaves, it's like super hectic. So thank you for taking time to hang out really cool. In an elf kitchen from 1873.
Yeah, this is amazing. We're toasty. We're on the podcast. I enjoyed speaking about these different things. And I think a lot of folks who balance multiple passions often have been told since childhood, including myself, like, it's better to be a master of one thing than a jack of all trades. But at the end of the day, I think number one thing is happiness. Because why would you want to be a master of something? Because it makes you happy, because you feel like you're excelling at a skill set. But if being able to have different peaks of joy throughout one day also deliver joy, it's important to step into that. And for me, I've loved being the musician at a business school or the business mind in the independent art world, and being able to cross over and interact with so many different types of people, such that my own life experience is much more rich because of it. So be yourself, at the end of the day, be honest about what makes you happy, and thank you, Under the Radar.
You are very welcome. Way to live your multifaceted life.
Amen.
My next interview is with the artist MightyBear, and they are one of the most striking artists I've come across in the last few years. I actually did go to Airwaves the year before, and that is where I first saw them perform and just was, I was just dazzled. So I hope that you enjoy our interview all about their work as well as what they're usually up to in Reykjavik. So MightyBear, welcome to Why Not Both?
Thank you.
Awesome to be here at Iceland Airwaves. Mm-hmm. So the first question that I usually ask people is, what do you do? And is there a better question I could ask you?
Probably not a better question, but what do I do? I create music and visuals that are born in my glittery head, and I try to make that into reality. So yeah.
That's fantastic. Your head is very glittery.
It is.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah. What can I say? I love sparkly things.
That makes you so happy.
And I kind of want to counterbalance, because my music tends to be dark and lyrically themed dark. Mm-hmm. So I just put on sparkles to balance it out.
There you go. Well, you got to have the duality.
Of course.
How did you, which came first, the visuals or the music? Which informs which?
The music came first, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I always wanted to... I've been writing music since I was a kid, and I used to be in a metal band, and I still am. But I wanted to create something that was purely mine. Mm-hmm. So a few of us were trying to start a drag scene again in Iceland, because there wasn't any.
Really?
Yeah.
Because you said, again, was there one and then it dwindled?
Yeah,
and then...
yeah. It kind of dwindled down, and with the popularity of RuPaul's Drag Race and drag coming into the mainstream. So it was like 5 years ago.
Oh.
We decided to start like a drag show. And some people that knew me from the scene were like, yeah, no, you can do music. Why don't you join us? And I was like, yes, sure. And I was like, okay, then kind of MightyBear got born.
Gotcha. That's really fascinating. So when you say you like kind of restarted a drag scene, like what does that look like? Did you run nights? Like how did you revive that?
Basically, we started in a night. It's called Dragsúgur, which is a very punny name if you know Icelandic.
I was like, that's probably really funny in Icelandic.
It is. It basically means like a draft, like wind draft, but with the word drag in it. And
right. So it's a pun on drafty and drag somehow?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But it makes sense in Icelandic. Anyway, we decided to start these monthly nights at Gaukurinn, which is kind of our like queer alternative heaven in Iceland.
Awesome.
So we started that show and it became hugely successful.
Amazing.
And it still is. It's the only constant drag night here.
I was gonna say, what's the audience like for drag night?
Everybody.
That's
You
awesome.
would be surprised. I mean, Iceland is very open. And the weird thing is, like, you get, like, the parents of performers and their friends and then random people. And it's just a loving community
That's so
of weirdos.
sweet.
And the weird thing is, right now, we have more drag kings. Which is
That's interesting.
very interesting, but it's a good thing.
That's really cool. So when you have a night, like, I know that in LA, there's a place called Hamburger Mary's where they have, like, drag queen bingo and, like, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, do you do different activities? Is it mainly performance? Is it...
90% performance.
Okay. Gotcha.
There's a show coming up where we're supporting this woman called Bára. She's kind of the Icelandic Edward Snowden. She's like...
Oh my God.
She did a whistleblowing thing here in Iceland. Like she witnessed few politicians talking shit about gay people and people with disabilities. And,
wow.
and she recorded the whole thing, and all of them like sued her. So we're having a fundraiser thing to
Oh my gosh.
pay for her legal fees.
Wow.
But yeah, it's a kind of a variety show. So it's not like this is Iceland. We don't do things in the typical way.
Right.
So it's a variety show. So you get like standard old school drag queen acts, you get live music, you get like slam poetry stuff. Like there's a little bit of everything. Because like all the performers are very like I think we're like 30 in the group now.
Oh wow.
And we're all very different in what we do.
I was gonna say, do you perform MightyBear stuff at the drag night or is it separate?
I used to perform the MightyBear stuff at the drag nights. Kind of begin with, and then I kind of tried lip syncing and all that when I was like, why am I doing that?
You're like, wait, I actually make music.
Yeah, but I haven't performed with them in a while because like MightyBear took its own direction and I'm kind of following that.
And I mean, like, so that the audience knows, like, I definitely approached you last year because you were so sparkly. How would you describe MightyBear to someone who hasn't seen MightyBear? Like, it obviously is informed by the drag scene, but it's so much more.
Yeah. Okay. I would say, imagine if David Bowie was born in 90-something and he listened to a lot of Marilyn Manson.
That's pretty accurate.
Kind of, yeah, but...
Well, I think what also struck me about it is that it was drag, but it had not like a medieval aspect to it, but like the mask that you wear has almost like... Not fantasy, I'm trying to think of the right word for it, but it has almost like a mythological element to it.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's the weird thing is the mask was kind of like a necessity thing to begin with because I tried to do makeup and I'm decent at it, but I'm not good at it.
Got it.
And my skin is terrible, so like wearing makeup all the time
would it like break out your skin? Yeah.
So I was like, I figured out this mask thing, and and I kind of like, this is where I am.
Do you feel like when you are kind of in like MightyBear getup, is it like a total like change of mentality for you?
Yes and no. It is as soon as I walk up on the stage and like the music starts, then it happens. But when I'm just hanging out before the show in full getup, I'm still kind of both.
You're kind of like part you and part MightyBear.
Yeah. Because there's like there's not a definitive line of and that's why it's not maybe drag, because MightyBear isn't so different from who I am, like as a person.
Right.
So it's a hazy zone of sometimes I'm both, sometimes I'm either.
I'm Beyonce, sometimes I'm Sasha Fierce.
Right.
Gotcha. That's fascinating. So I was thinking about that with then the visual element. Like, how did you learn how to do some of that visual programming, or was that something that you learned how to do while you were doing music programming?
Well, the thing is, I've just always been a nerd. So, like, interesting. Like, yeah, I get obsessed about stuff, and like, I need to learn that. How can I do that? And
oh yeah, you're a Virgo, right?
Yeah. So I kind of obsess over stuff. So yeah, no, I always knew how to edit footage and stuff like that, and it was just inherent need to create something that's fully mine.
Right.
So and the fact is that I love when music and kind of visuals meet together.
Yes.
And especially living in the Icelandic music scene, nobody does music and visuals together.
Really?
So I was like, well, some do, but not to the level that I'm
I was
trying
going to
to
say,
do.
well, yours are synchronized in a way that is unusual, because sometimes people will just sort of like throw on footage.
Yeah, and then it's like some stuff that somebody else made for them. I try to incorporate, like, it fits the beat and stuff like that.
Yeah, like everything's actually
synced together.
Do you use Ableton?
Yeah.
It's interesting because some of the artists I've talked to have like day jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do always ask people, like, do you have a day job?
I have a day job, yeah.
Awesome. What is your day job?
I work as a project manager for the Reykjavik Energy Company.
Gotcha.
Geothermal energy and all that jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually really cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, that sounds like it kind of like dovetails like the interest in engineering and kind of like project managing.
Yeah, and it's just like, I don't know, being a Virgo, I love problem solving. That's why, like, I love problem solving.
That's so funny. Do you ever find that there's any conflict between having a day job and performing, or do you find that you have enough time for both?
I have time for both, because my job, and I think it's very the Icelandic mentality is, because nobody lives off of art in Iceland. Like, few people do, but most don't. Mm-hmm. So everybody has day jobs, and employers here tend to be really cool about, like, if you need time off for, like, airwaves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but I save always vacation time for, like, airwaves or tours. So I don't take vacations, I just tour.
Which I think some people perceive as a vacation, and it's like,
but it's not. No, it's not. It's not. I mean, it's just, if you're passionate about it, you make it work.
Yeah.
You just make it work.
Well, and I like that you said that, like, employers are accommodating, because I'm finding that when I'm speaking to artists outside of America, there's a lot of different kind of, like, mores that go along with, like, having a day job and being an artist. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like, especially, like, in Iceland, employers are like, oh, you're probably going to be involved in the arts somehow, and so they're very flexible.
Yeah.
It also doesn't sound like there's really any, like, shame in having a day job. I think that there are...
No. I mean, and I honestly like it, because it doesn't put pressure on my, like, creativity.
Right.
I love having a, like, 9-to-5 job, because it pays the bills, and I don't have to worry about that. So when I get home after work, my art is truly mine. Like, there's no financial gain, like, I need to pay the rent. Oh my God, I gotta do it. Yeah. So it's more like I do it on my own time, and of course I respect the people that can do it full time, and I would love to do it someday, but this kind of system works for me, I guess.
And I think that that's really important to, like, say to people and to have people know that it's like, even if your art isn't paying for you full time, that doesn't then denigrate your art.
No, of course not.
And it's like, I think that some people have that dichotomy where they're like, either like, I'm super famous and I'm making tons of money off my art and it's sustaining me, and so therefore it's valid, versus like, if I have a day job, my art's not valid.
Yeah. No, and which is insane, because the weird thing is here in Iceland, the mentality is more that you shouldn't be able to live off of it. Like, we're more like
you're like,
purist.
why would you?
No, we're more purist in way. The art is art, and it's like, yeah, it's true stuff.
I wish people could see the face you just made. I think that's the most serious face I've seen you make.
I did like my kind of black metal hands and like,
you did.
True. No, but yeah, you shouldn't be able to live. Of course, you should be able to live off of it, but it's that suffering artist thing. Like, nobody wants to pay me for what I do, so I do stuff for me and not other people. And
Right.
yeah.
Well, and also, I mean, I don't know if I'm biased, but I feel like that actually makes the best art when you're making stuff that resonates with you. Mm-hmm. You're going to make something, because isn't that the whole point, that it's like you're the only you that can make something?
Yeah.
So,
And there's no like financial gain or nothing that's going to influence what I do.
Exactly.
So if like there would be financial gains to this, I could like talk to a label and they'd be like, no, we don't want the mask. And I would be like, oh, okay. Which I wouldn't like, because I'm like, I'm the only one paying for this shit. So like, I'm the CEO of this company, bitch.
Exactly. And the mask is what drew me to you.
Yeah.
And
Sparkly stuff.
Exactly. Sparkly. Literally shiny objects. Yeah. And that's, I mean, and obviously then I like went to your performance and quite liked your performance. I'm looking forward to seeing you like this year. But like, that is what drew me in, was like the visual aspect of it. Because I do think that like, in a way, there's like a certain spectacle to it that is like drag. Mm-hmm. But it did feel like
sure.
I was curious what was going on there.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that kind of was my idea with the visual thing. And the fact that I love myself as a person, but I didn't want to start a solo career and like be it by my real name and yeah, I'm cool. So like having a different persona about it makes it so much easier to distinguish between and allowing myself more to be, because I didn't want to like, because I'm a shy person in general. I didn't want to like have the MightyBear persona be shy.
Oh, so it was a way to kind of like have that persona that you can ascribe like different personality traits to that persona.
Yeah.
That makes total sense.
And being like, MightyBear's not shy. It's not, So it's like a,
It's like a differentiation. Like if you were to describe MightyBear, like what's MightyBear like? They're not shy.
Not shy.
Very sparkly.
Very sparkly. No, and the weird thing is MightyBear is probably me. But yeah, I certain aspects of myself that I'm like, MightyBear isn't shy, it isn't, but still, I mean, it's basically me, but it's so easy to put on the mask and like, nope.
I'm MightyBear.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting about masks. And I was thinking, I was like, how does that kind of dovetail with like queer identity, both like in Iceland and just like in general?
Okay. Well, the weird thing is, Icelandic community is very open to queerness, but on a very superficial level. So, being gay in Iceland is still hard. And more being like queer is hard.
Got it.
But no, I mean, we were very accepting of gays and like, but we have that like cookie cutter thing, like a gay guy is that guy. So our society hasn't gotten into the fact that some of us are just queer or weird or more alternative So the mask thing for me was more like I just wanted to create something that wasn't me, like step out of myself for a little bit and create and being able to like create and behave how I wanted to, take the mask off and nobody would know that it would be me.
Right. That's interesting that you said that, because that was like when I first met up with you, I did have to like text you to be like, hey.
Yeah.
I'd never seen your face.
Yeah. And the weird thing is I forgot about that. I was like, oh, of course she doesn't know. Yeah. No, but I think I used it to begin with, think about like the mask would be like a protection from whatever, but it isn't really, but I just love the fact of a mask kind of creates something different. It kind of, you can easily hide your own ego.
Yeah, it's kind of subsumed in it. Because that's interesting what you said about like the superficial support for the gay community and for being gay. And like you said, that it's kind of like the cookie cutter gay.
Yeah.
Where it sounds like it's almost like one version of gay as opposed to
there
like,
is.
Yeah, as opposed to queer culture where it's like such an explosion of different things. And like, because I remember when I originally saw you, I read the mask almost as non-binary.
Yeah, which it is in a way.
Yeah.
Because the weird thing is, like, I've always thought, like, because the MightyBear thing is drag, but not drag.
Yeah.
And it's me wearing dresses, but it's still, I'm moving in a very masculine way. Like, I think it's an expression of myself, because I think, I was raised by women entirely. So it's more like an expression of both my gender identities, and like, because we have all that, like, female power, male power, whatever, in all of us. It just depends on how much we want to show of each.
Right.
So for me, it was just like MightyBear wears dresses, but still screaming like a dude. And,
Exactly.
and this is what I want to play with. Like, fuck the gender norms and fuck whatever. I just want to express, period.
I'm so on board with that. I know that the listeners can't see, but I'm making tiny fists of agreement. Like, yes.
Yes.
Yes. And it's like, I like kind of the dichotomy of that you have a day job where you can kind of like do your structured thing, but then you also have an outlet where, like you said, you can be like, fuck gender norms. I'm going to express whatever I want to express. Because I think that in a way it's like, I mean, why would you necessarily be expressing that while you're project managing?
Yeah, and it's such
like,
a different thing. Like, I work for, the biggest energy company in Iceland, and it's very, I'm not going to say like homophobic, but like I work with people in their 40s, 50s, and they kind of just don't, like, because I wear nail polish sometimes to work, and I get weird looks. Not in a bad way, but
just in like, is it in a curious way or is it in kind of like a slightly
tell.
judgy way?
Depends. A little bit of both.
Gotcha.
But like,
Gotcha.
No discrimination, but I still get the weird looks.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it, and I kind of like it because I want to fuck with people's head.
Yes.
Like, I want to. So yeah, it's a good thing, like having that day job as well, to it kind of lets me know what's happening in society, like, because if it would just be in the art scene here, in the music scene, I'm not sure I would understand what's happening with the larger part of the
do you think that kind of like the, like, especially like the music scene and even the drag scene, are they just like kind of like almost like insular? Is that what you mean?
Got it. Because you're talking to like-minded people all the time, and you could hang out in Dublin and Reykjavik and like not meet. You would, like, here you'll find the most open people.
Right.
You're not going to the suburbs and seeing like the people that are, quote unquote, the true enemy. Like, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's like the people who are leading kind of not the downtown Reykjavik life.
Yeah. So having that day job is kind of nice in a way that I get to see, like, all aspects of what's going on.
Yeah. It sounds like a good balance, though, in a way. Like, it doesn't sound disheartening necessarily, but it does sound kind of sobering when you do see people kind of looking at your nail polish and kind of maybe judging, or kind of, you aren't sure.
But it's kind of, it's more sobering in a way, but it honestly fuels my fire in a way. I'm doing something correct, and I'm going to do it more, and like,
I like, there's this meme of like a pirate talking to a mermaid, and he's like, I don't like your song. And she's like, I will intensify the song. It kind of reminds me of that, of like, oh, you think this is a bit challenging? I will intensify the challenge. Because, I think that is the way, I mean, this is obviously my own personal bias, but I think that is the way that gender is going. Like, it's not going to suddenly revert back to being strict gender norms.
No, of course not. And for me, like, I'm a very tolerant to other people's opinions. And that's what I kind of think the queer community kind of needs to learn again. Like, we need to be tolerant of their opinions, because, like, the older generations and stuff, they just don't know any better. As long as you're not hating on my rights, as we're kind of dealing with here. Yeah. So it's kind of difficult talking about it, because an American, you're dealing with completely different stuff.
Right. That's... Yeah, do you deal with, like, I know that this is going to air in January, but I mean, over the last few years in America, there has been more pushback against human rights for people who are LGBTQ. Does the same kind of thing happen here, or not so much?
No, not so much. The thing is, like, if you're, I'm going to say, like, cookie cutter mold lesbian or gay man, you will get no opposition. Like, almost not. But yeah, we're finding more for trans rights here, and yeah, I'm not gonna say it's like easy, but it's probably a lot easier than in America. And but yeah, hopefully we haven't seen a lot of opposition.
That's good.
Yeah, but it's we still have our own fights, and like we were fighting for a lot of trans rights right now. And
what, like when you say you're fighting for trans rights, are there laws against trans people? Like I know that, for instance, in America, one of the things that was going on was whether people had the right to fire you if you were trans. Like no, to discriminate against employment for people.
Yeah, no. We're more talking like okay. There's this thing right now that the Icelandic language is very difficult when it comes to names. And we have a special committee of people that allow or decline certain names.
Wow.
Yeah, because of like grammatically it doesn't work.
Do you conjugate names like when it's a different part of the sentence? Like whether it's a subject or whether it's the object?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
And multiple levels of that in every direction.
Yeah.
So and there's a certain thing like,
well, if you were, like, if you have transitioned from male to female, if you're transitioning names, it sounds like that would be very difficult here based on the grammar.
Yeah.
Got it.
Based on the grammar. And you're allowed to have basically every name that you want instead of if it used to be, quote unquote, traditionally masculine or female. So, yeah, we're kind of fighting for the naming committee to kind of understand that non-binary people or certain aspects of like would kind of want to have maybe the old school masculine name, like so it's more of a and the weird thing is it's a grammatic fight more than
that's something that's going on in America right now, is that a lot of non-binary prefer gender neutral pronouns, which in English is they and them, which traditionally, like centuries back, was actually used as a singular. But now, like in common English, sometimes hasn't been. And so there's a lot of pushback because people are saying, oh, but that's plural. It's so hard for me to use something that's plural. And it's like, great, it might be hard for you grammatically, but how does it feel if someone feels like their entire identity is being misunderstood? It's like one is maybe like a 0.5 out of 10 problem. Because your grammar is a little tricky. And one is like, a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 problem because someone's feeling like they're being misidentified.
Oh, of course. So
it's like...
Weird thing first is it's very like grammatically like it's so entwined into our language that even taking like we have like a neutral pronoun which is about like babies and animals and but that's like it
and you don't want to be identified as like
it or that and
it.
So we've come up with a new one, but making that work in a plural thing. And it's kind of like, but languages evolve, and that's our debate right now on how to figure that out. But and
it sounds like through MightyBear you are kind of helping even the perception of gender evolve.
Yeah, I would like to think so because I mean, what is gender like really? If
social construct.
Yeah. We're both doing the rainbow sign right now.
Yes, we did.
No, but for sure. Because I think like people have all energies inside of them. Some of us have more of something than others, but at the end of the day, we all share the same.
Kind of the same viscera.
Yeah, and it's more like how do you want to express yourself and how do you feel? So.
Very true. Very true. Because when I was looking at the lineup, even this year, I didn't see any acts that were like yours. No,
true. But Airwaves this year was, I think it was the second year that it was like 50% female, 50% male artist.
Is awesome.
Which is awesome.
I'm very in favor of that.
Yeah. Oh, well, of course.
Yeah. I'm really glad that now, like, this is the first festival because so many festivals have difficulty with even gender parity.
Yeah.
Yours also had, like, the dedicated visual element. So I was like, it's really interesting.
But the weird thing is that's the nerd in me talking. And, like, and the thing is, I love going to shows. I love it so much. And seeing something, your Icelandic is getting good.
Every time I cough, MightyBear is like, wow, you're getting better at Icelandic. Being from LA, that sounded so Valley Girl, but I'm not used to there being clean air.
True.
So I can't stop coughing. It's charming.
No, but we were talking about.
Going to shows. That was so much fun going to that show with you last night.
Yeah.
You were so hyped.
I know. I love it. The weird thing is, they're the only power metal band in Iceland, and they're so adorable.
Oh my god, they were so sweet.
They're so sweet, and they honestly talk about dragons and fire
And swords.
and swords. Yeah. No, I love it. I love the fact that they don't take themselves too seriously. They're just a couple of guys having fun with what they do.
Just happening to play really good power metal.
Yeah. Which is so not my cup of tea, but they are so good, though.
They were genuinely, and that's something that I find fascinating that, does kind of appeal to the theme of the podcast of Why Not Both.
Mm-hmm.
That we were talking about that it's, having that almost, edge of humor and darkness.
Mm-hmm.
It's the combination of those two, and I don't know, is that specifically Icelandic, would you say?
It is. Earlier today we talked about Icelandic comedy.
Yes.
And it's the same. You have to don't take yourself too seriously, but you still have to take yourself a little bit seriously.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to laugh at yourself.
It's kind of like a non-ironic tracksuit.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. No, yeah. Perfect. No, because you have to be able to laugh at yourself. Because if you can't, then you're no fun.
Right.
You're supposed to be able to laugh at yourself and kind of have fun with what you do.
Well, and I feel because it is such a small community, if people were kind of almost pretentious and took themselves too seriously, people wouldn't want to work with them.
Believe me, that happens a lot.
Yikes.
No, I mean, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. There are a lot of foreign artists that come here and want to live here and start their thing, and they take themselves too seriously. Mm-hmm. So we end up being no, I love that, but you have to be, you have to calm down. You have to be able to laugh, and because nobody's here to make money. Nobody's here. We're just enjoying ourselves, and not everybody's going to like you.
And I think that that's such a cultural, beautiful cultural thing, because people do come to LA almost for the same reason, is that they come because they're oh, this is the place where you make things, and they have this, 100% serious, I'm going to make the thing. And in some ways that's really good because you're very driven. Mm-hmm. But in other ways because it is more capitalist in regards to the art scene. Mm-hmm. If you don't make money, you're considered a failure. There's the whole thing of people making fun of actors who are waiters, things like that.
Yeah.
Where it sounds here there's more of the culture of don't take it so seriously, everything's going to be okay, because you don't have to necessarily quote make it in that way.
No, but and the thing is, what is making it? Being known by other people.
Yeah.
Now, I think make it is more creating something.
Stuff.
Yeah, make something that you yourself are so proud of, and that makes a mark on somebody. I honestly, if at a live show, if one person comes up to me and said that really moved me, my job is complete.
You did it.
Yeah.
You did the thing.
I did. Yeah. Because there's nothing more to it than I want at least one person in the audience to be yeah, I moved you in some way. Yeah, I kind of made you forget about your day or whatever. But that's the whole ticket about it.
Yeah.
There's nothing more to it. No, what more do you want?
Exactly. Cause
no, moving thousands of people at one time, cool, but...
Right.
But,
I mean, obviously, it's way more fun when you feel that collective energy. But
of course,
it sounds at the end of the day, it's just about communicating with other people.
Is, yeah.
And being here's me, here's you.
Yeah. And there's nothing more that needs to, yeah.
Aww. I was that's really lovely. What would you advise if someone wanted to, because it's such a really interesting lane of music and visual presentation that you're in. Mm-hmm. What would you recommend to someone who is I want to learn how to program audio and visuals and things like that? What would you tell kind of a younger you?
Probably just honestly research, and because we live in a day and age where you can learn anything online.
True. There's a lot of tutorials out there.
Yeah. Well, and take tutorials and kind of make them your own. And okay, you can learn anything, but like being master at it or something takes more skill. But yeah, you can Google anything. You can and experiment. Don't be. And I would rather say take risks.
Yeah, because some of the stuff you're going to do is going to work, and some of it is like epically
bomb.
not.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you can't imagine how many shows I've tried the visual stuff, and it bombed.
Wow. But you kept going.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like when I'm seeing an artist play, and they have an idea and it bombs, I'm still like, I get what you were trying to do. Kudos. Like, I respect that more.
Because you're on the path.
Yeah, you're on the path. And you tried it, and I kind of get what you wanted, but it didn't happen. But that's more respectable because you're trying.
At the very least, you tried. And also, if you keep iterating, it's like you're going to get there.
You're going to get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a difficult journey, but you're going to get there.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to do the same as everybody else, I'm going to be like, yeah, cool show. Amazing. I would rather talk like that was some cool shit. Yeah, it bombed, but I get the idea.
Yeah.
And it was cool. And
yeah,
keep on going.
Yeah. Because I'm betting, like, if your visuals, like you said, like, didn't work a few times, like, it sounds like people probably gave you feedback that then helped you to be able to actually, like, do it the way
just
that
be
you
open
wanted to express.
Yeah, and then be open to the feedback.
Yeah.
Like, of course you're going to get negative comments, but filter out what is negative. And if all of them are negative in a way, like, the visual sucked, then you have to look at yourself and
be like, did maybe the visuals suck?
Yeah. No, because you always have pride in what you do and stick to your guns, but still be open to what you're hearing around yourself.
Yeah, because I think that there's a difference between when people are trying to be like cruel when they're criticizing you to be cruel, whereas if people are actually giving you feedback so that you can grow what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's very different.
Yeah, and it's learning to distinguish what is what and taking the negativity out of it and being like, okay, they might be right. But yeah, okay. I'll try to work on that. And
And I like that attitude of like, if something is not going well, that you work on it. It doesn't mean that like something's wrong with you.
No, of course. Like, come on. Same with everything. Did we invent the wheel in a day? Did we go to the moon in a day?
Right.
No.
No.
It took time. And same with artists. Like, did they, like, their first album was their best one or whatever. Like, it takes time to hone your skill, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, and even like when people seem to like think that an artist comes out of nowhere, it's usually because they've been working for like 5 to 10 years and you just didn't know it.
You didn't know it, yeah.
Because a lot of it was like medium okay, but they were like ramping up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always think that's funny when people are like, oh my God, have you heard of this artist? And you're like, yeah.
Yeah. No, like, nobody comes out of anything like perfect.
No.
Everything is practice, skill, hone your craft. So yeah, just be open, willing to do it. And if people are giving you negative comments or laughing at you for it, fuck them.
Exactly.
Like I said, like the great poet once said, if them bitches don't pay your bills, you pay them bitches no mind. It's my favorite thing to say. I love it.
Oh my God. I'm like eating my Airwaves bracelet in reaction.
But honestly, it's like a mantra to me. Like, if them bitches don't pay your bills, pay them no mind.
What would you say is your favorite thing that's come out of being MightyBear?
Two things. There's been like playing the live shows and doing it by myself and being able to like, I can do this by myself because I come from like a bad environment. The other thing was when I released my last EP. This is very egocentric, but for the first time after creating music for like 15, 16 years, I held a vinyl record that I made.
You made it!
And like, no, it was like a small victory to me, but it was like, I've always wanted to have a vinyl record.
That's
with
so cool,
my music though, yeah. And I stood there for a little bit and like I cried a little bit and like, oh my God, it's so cool. But yeah, that was a huge victory for me.
That's so wonderful. Well, because then It's one thing to like be creating something, but to hold something tangible in your hands that you're like, I made this.
No, it's like being a kid going through my like cousin's record collection.
Yeah.
Looking at the big vinyls and putting them on, and because like I was born listening to music, like, and it's been my passion forever. Being able to hold something as well was like nice. Like if something like this will outlive me, this will.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You made it.
Yeah. I mean, in that small kind of yay, I did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh. I can't imagine anything that I could ask you that's better than that. I was like, that's so heartwarming.
No, but the thing is, just love what you do, and if you love what you do, these little victories make everything.
Exactly.
And they kind of make it worth it.
Oh, totally. Oh, totally. Because it's like all the time that you spent being like, okay, how do I program this? Okay, how do I do this? Okay, how do I learn this? What am I doing? Where do I get a cool mask?
I've always been a weird kid. Own it.
Yeah.
Those times where you're feeling you're not doing anything, where you're just looking at random stuff online.
Yeah.
Don't forget, that's kind of putting something in the bank of like visual stuffs. Nothing is a waste of time.
I like that. Nothing is a waste of time.
Nothing is a waste of time.
You should come to America and teach people how to relax.
The only reason I'm so chill right now because I'm on my second beer.
There we go. There we go. You're like, everything is great.
Everything is great.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on Why Not Both, produced by Under the Radar
It's my pleasure.
at Iceland Airwaves.
My true pleasure.
Oh, it's
And now we're going to see some cool
pleasure.
music.
We're going to go see some really cool music. This is a fine tradition that we started 24 hours ago.
Yeah. And I'm so into it.
So down. My third interview was with the charming Lily from Penelope Isles. They are a band out of the UK, and this was their first time playing the festival circuit. It was such a pleasure to get to sit down and talk with her because I had the privilege of seeing them play in Los Angeles, actually, the night before we all flew out for the festival. So it's really cool to be able to see a new band that's really on the rise and to get to experience, you know, the weirdness of a music festival together. Hello.
Hi, Pam.
Hi, Lily. This is Lily from Penelope Isles.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, yeah, good. I'm slightly hungover and haven't had much sleep, but feeling good and excited to be here in Iceland. And
You've only been in, what, 4 different time zones?
yeah, I know. I have no idea what day of the week it is, or thank God the clock on my phone automatically changes.
There you go. Oh, that's happened to me where my calendar app has gotten stuck in the wrong time zone.
That's happened to me too.
And you look at it and you're like, this seems incorrect.
Yeah.
So the first question that I usually ask on Why Not Both is, what do you do? And is there in fact a better question to ask?
Wow. I think what do you do fits nicely. So I play in a band called Penelope Isles with my brother and my 2 mates, Jack and Becky. And that's the majority of my time, because we tour a lot. And I'm also a hand-poke tattoo artist back in Brighton.
So cool.
Thanks, man. So yeah, kind of those are my jobs.
Yeah. How did you start doing the hand poke tattoos?
Well, I actually needed to get a job that I could be my own boss with, because holding down a job in hospitality is really hard when you're constantly on tour. So,
oh wait, so you were working hospitality before?
yeah, I was working in a pub in Brighton. And yeah, it was great. I worked there for years, but I felt I just kept feeling so bad, like saying, oh, can I have like a month off to go to wherever I was going? But
So you worked in a pub, but you were always like asking for like random time off, and
I was always going into work and feeling like constant guilt by asking, oh, can I take the next month off and stuff like that, and they were always really cool with it, but then the pub kind of shifted management and I lost kind of the love for the place anyway, and I thought I'm just gonna try and make something for myself that I'm in charge with. And my brother had the idea years ago, oh Lily, you'd be quite good at tattooing, because I love drawing and I did art at college. It doesn't sound that impressive, but
no, I was actually going to ask like where that came from, because I was just like, that's such a specific, and it's such a specific mode of tattooing that I figured I was just like, oh, did you study art? Did you?
Yeah, well, I studied art for 2 years in sixth form, like just art in the Isle of Man College, which is where I'm from. And I was always, my style of drawing's always kind of been just quite simple line work. Never been that, it's never been that complex. So with hand pokes as well, like the style that I started off really enjoying and researching, all the styles seem to have that same kind of simpleness. So I thought, maybe this could work. And my friend got a hand poke tattoo off a famous kind of stick and poke artist called European Sun, who's based in Brighton. And I thought, oh my god, that's amazing. Like, the lines are so crisp and clear. Yeah. I need to go get one and see what it's about. So I went and got one, and I ended up bringing like loads of mates back because I was just so fascinated by the whole, just the whole scenario. It's just at his house, and it was all very sterile and cool and clean, and it was just very relaxed environment to get a tattoo.
Well, it sounds like such a personal connection too, having an artist work with you in that environment.
Exactly. And he was really kind enough to kind of show me how he does it as he was tattooing me, and he like sold me a few needles and some carbon paper, and I then just literally went home, and really luckily my brother Jack, who I played a band with, he said, you can have my legs, just have them. Because I think he really wanted me to get good, because he wanted loads of free tattoos. up until that point, we've always paid for them, but since then, I don't think he's paid for a tattoo, and since I started, none of my friends have really.
Well, and that's such a gift to just be like, because I was wondering if you practiced on. I know that some people will practice on like leather or on like spare things like that, and I love that the fridge is just like, I'll join in. I think that this is like. This is the magic of doing podcasts at Airwaves. It's just like random elements keep popping in, and I'm like, cool.
We'll probably start hearing some like rock band play in the garden. Someone's
gonna like be playing in the water closet. I don't know why I just said water closet instead of WC. That was so formal.
Playing in the water closet.
Why am I like this? But yeah, that's so cool that he was like, no, literally, like, practice on my legs.
Yeah, and I did, and I've looked at a photo recently of the first tattoo I did, and it's obviously quite, like, shoddy, but, you got to start somewhere. And I remember doing it and thinking, oh my god, I found my thing, I feel like I'm really good at this. And then years later, I look back at that tattoo, and I'm like, that is really not great. I still love it. We both love it. They're cool tattoos.
Well, and he has like the whole record of it then on his legs.
Exactly, and it's special. And he's one of my favorite tattoos I've ever done. Is when I did my 100th tattoo, I like tattooed 100 dots on him in a square, and it's that game. I don't know if you've ever played the game. There's 100 dots in a big square, and then you have to connect little dot to dot with little lines, and then if you make a square, then you get another go. And he used to play it with my dad a lot, and so it's kind of like a important tattoo. But
that's really sweet.
So yeah, I'm really grateful, like just to have like friends and family that have encouraged it. And I gave my mum and dad their first tattoos.
Oh my god!
In their 60s and stuff. So.
And I love that, like, based on kind of like the flexibility of it, that gives you the time that you can like take on clients when you're in Brighton.
Exactly.
And then like when you're not in Brighton, you don't have to be like stressed that you're like letting someone down, or you have to take time off, or you have to like.
That's exactly why I wanted to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think if I worked in a shop, or I'd probably have a little bit more of that responsibility, but I've kind of made it happen so that I do it from home, and you know, it's just on my own terms, and I've got really cool housemates that are, they love coming home and seeing like random people half naked in my living room, getting like some
like getting work done.
weird infinity symbol in between their boobs, you know.
Like one does.
Yeah.
Well, and Brighton's like the
Anything
perfect place
goes.
for that.
Yeah.
I love Brighton for that reason. Like, you can just like wander about and be like, yeah, that seems about accurate.
Yeah. So my favourite thing to see in Brighton is the zebra guy, and you walk through the pavilion, which is like a really nice kind of like palace in the middle of Brighton, and you walk through the gardens, and he sits there and playing lounge music on a big portable piano, and he's dressed with like a zebra in a white suit, and he's like just a zebra guy. He's fucking brilliant.
That's amazing. Just like that's the institution there that you're like, yeah, he's here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's here, and that's the thing. Like, no one really bats an eyelid anymore, to be honest. But we have just actually made a music video for one of our songs called Round, and I had to wear this green screen inflatable costume,
Oh my god.
and I had to go through central Brighton 3 days in a row.
In the green screen. Oh, are they gonna then like edit in onto the green
Yeah, so
screen?
it's already out, so you can watch it now.
Ooh.
And it's basically like just kind of like footage of us. It's very like weird and arty, but also quite hilarious as well.
But you had to wander around Brighton with this on.
Yeah, I'm basically dancing around, and I had to, filming it was the most ridiculous thing. I had to just like, Jack was filming, and then our drummer Jack had like the music playing on a portable speaker behind him, and then I was like dancing to our song, and it was so embarrassing, but luckily I had my face covered with the green, so no one could tell it was me. But it's funny because nowadays people don't even really like watch you, they just watch through their phones instantly.
Were people filming you?
Oh, instantly people just get their phones out and they just watch through you, and they don't even want to interact with you because you think, okay, great, people are interested. And then I try and like get some sort of audience participation going, and they would freak, just get away from me. And like it's such a strange thing.
That is fascinating that people wanted to be at like that one layer removed, like kind of see the spectacle of it but not engage.
Exactly. That's exactly it. We're all just onions.
That's so interesting. I hadn't thought of that because when you said that, I was thinking of all the ridiculous things that me and my friends have filmed. Just
of course.
I'm like, I shouldn't be saying it because you're supposed to get permits to film in LA, but no one gets permits to film on your phone.
Yeah, well, you're not going to think twice if you see like a man playing the piano with a zebra hat on.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm like, what have we done? We've like jumped around in the ocean. We've thrown paper airplanes at each other in the street, like all sorts of stuff where it's like, and you almost have to have like, in some ways, like no shame.
Yeah.
Like you're like, this is where we're at. I'm committed.
Yeah. So true. Yeah.
But I hadn't thought of that it's like on one hand, I feel like in LA it's similar to Brighton where people are just like, oh yeah, zebra at a piano, of course, carry on with your day. Where it's like if people are filming doing something weird, people almost like expect that. But I hadn't thought about that of people not engaging, like having that remove of their phone.
Yeah, some people were horrible. Like some people found it really funny and would have like a little dance with me. But some people are just brutal. I don't know if we're allowed to swear on this podcast.
Yeah.
But one guy, this actually makes me laugh. Like one guy saw me, and it was blistering hot day, and I'm wearing this costume, my face is covered, I'm sweating underneath, like, and one guy passes me, barges into me, and just goes, "There's that fucking idiot again."
Again?
Yeah, like because he'd obviously seen me like over the past few days doing it, and it's just like, oh come on, man! Like
You're like, oh, I'm so sorry to ruin your day.
I know, it's just like so brutal, wasn't it?
You're like, it's all about you, clearly.
Can you imagine someone saying that? Just like,
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I can't believe that guy was like so myopic to just be like, how dare you ruin my day making fun stuff.
Yeah, and also you get, I had loads of people, parents, that would just like grab their child, like put their arm over their child and like put them behind them.
What?
I know, just like, don't get involved. But then you get the opposite, and I had like parents be like, go on, and they'd like shoo their kid to me, and like we do a little cute thing. And
well, it sounds like your parents in particular, like when you mentioned that they were encouraging of the stick and poke, I was like, they also are like, oh, and our son and daughter are totally in a band together.
yeah,
So I was just like, that's so sweet.
they are ridiculously proud of us. They're so amazing and always supported us from the very start. So I think the fact that we're finally getting to do amazing things like play this festival,
Yeah.
and you know, like this morning we were in Spain, and the other day we were in LA, and like for us it's obviously really exciting, but for them who have put in like the trust and the graft of like not ever being pushy,
Yeah.
for them I think it's great, and it's really nice to see.
That's so cool. Like, are they in the arts at all, or how did the two of you start the band?
No, well, they appreciate music and art. My dad, you know, will always say, oh, I played violin at the Royal Albert Hall when I was 12 years old.
Oh.
He'll always say it, but I don't think they're particularly musical. But they just love really good music, and they brought me and Jack up on really cool bands, like kind of early indie stuff, like a band called the Magic Numbers. I don't know if you've heard of them. They were like really big, kind of early 2000s, and they're like our favourite band and a massive influence to our music. And a band called The Thrills. I don't know, do you remember The Thrills? They got that song that's like,
name.
just don't go back to Big Sur. Do you know?
I love how you're singing that, and I'm like, what would be wrong with going back to Big Sur? It's so pretty.
Yeah.
I'm like, or maybe they're warning everyone so that it's not crowded.
I think it's just like, I think it's a kind of a love song, just like, of course she's going to go back to Big Sur. Like, we went there the other day, and it is
breathtaking.
It's amazing. And for us, as me and Jack, that's like one of our favourite songs that has been like growing up, and just to, like, you know, when you see a place that you've sang about for years, it's like,
you're like, I'm actually there.
Yeah, it's cool.
Oh, that's so precious. I'm like, that adds new layers to Big Sur, because I'm like, I love Big Sur.
Man, you need to get into The Thrills. Like,
now I'm going to listen to The Thrills.
they're awesome.
Last I was there, I was just so excited to go to the Henry Miller Library. Like, that was my big thing.
The who?
Henry Miller.
Henry Miller.
He was a writer who then lived there, and I love.
I feel like I should know who that is, so maybe
we're training.
yeah, exactly.
Because I like him, but honestly, I liked a woman with whom he was involved, Anais Nin, is the author that I was really into, and so it's like seeing kind of like where he ended up. Like, I was just so excited in a very, very nerdy way.
Well, yeah, because you've probably been reading all about it and making your own images, and then you go there, and that happened to me the other day when I've just finished. I don't read a lot, and I just finished reading Patti Smith's Just Kids book, and we were in New York, and Abby was like, her old house is down here, and we took a little detour.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, oh, it's the house she lived in with Robert.
Oh my God, that book is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, I mean heartbreaking in a good way, as opposed to like, oh, it's so sad. It was just like, it's so poignantly written. It's so good.
It's so well written, to the point where almost too well written.
I feel that when
Sometimes
I'm reading
it's
her,
like,
I'm almost like angry at how good it is.
She's like, she does like write a poem essentially about her going to like get her favourite sandwich. I'm like, alright, Patty, you're only going to get a sandwich, love.
I'm like joking. Like, this has happened ever since I like got here. It's like the air is too clean, and so when I laugh, I start coughing. I'm like, that's how you know that you're from LA.
Yeah.
When your body's like rejecting clean air.
Think about how those New Yorkers feel.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah, that book is amazing. And I think about when you were talking about your parents like raising you on good music, I was like, how did then you kind of transition into playing your own music with your brother? Like, are you the two that started the band, or?
Yeah, so it's all mine and Jack's songs, and I went to uni in Brighton and originally formed the band with Jack and Becky, not my brother Jack, the drummer Jack. We call them Sowie. I originally formed the band with Sowie and Becky, and we were called Kooky Lou, which was like all my solo stuff, and it was basically a kind of stripped back acoustic version of Penelope Isles. So, and then Jack moved to Brighton and joined the band, and we vamped it up a bit and gave it a makeover and, you know, changed the name. Our mum's name is Penelope.
Oh,
and we're from the Isle of Man.
From the Isle of Man.
Yeah, and then we just basically worked really hard, just gigging like 3 times a week for the first year, just really like getting stuck in.
I was going to say get things tight.
Yeah, we were trying to like at least make a name for ourselves in Brighton. That's the first move is to try and like get yourselves known in your hometown. But yeah, we've been playing music together since I was about 15, because we used to play in a band called Your Gold Teeth, and he's 6 years older than me, so like you know, he came back from university and I was like 14 and wasn't really like playing rock music and stuff, and he wanted to start a band, so he was like, I'm going to teach you how to play the bass. Yeah. And he taught me to play Gouge Away by the Pixies.
Oh my god.
It's only like 3 notes, the whole thing.
That's so funny.
Yeah, so we started that band and then we were in that for a few years, and that was all his songs, and this is now like
your songs. Yeah,
it's like more of a team effort.
Oh, I'm like, that's so sweet. And like a lot of times I'll talk to people about kind of the dovetailing of like that you have a creative endeavor and you also have another job, and your other job is a creative endeavor.
Yeah.
Which is so cool, because I think that like a lot of people I've talked to, we've discussed how sometimes people have like shame around having a job outside of their like quote art.
For sure, like you get people
like,
that are like, oh, I'm a musician, but I also work in sales.
Yeah.
Because it's not creative.
Yeah.
And most of the time people are just doing that job in sales because they need to pay the rent so that they can do music.
Exactly.
But then you obviously get people that love both and they actually love working in sales.
Yeah, and that's the thing, that it's like, in a way, you know, we have so much pressure, and I know that I felt this, where it's like, if you're not making money from your art, then therefore your art's not like valid somehow. Yeah. And I've always thought that was so weird, because I'm like, are you making something you love? Are you communicating with people with it? Cool, your work's done.
Exactly.
Like, that's the job right there.
And also, do you not find that it's like really hard to make money from art now?
Oh my gosh, it is.
Like, when do you I feel like you only make money when you're massive.
Yeah. Like, even, I would say, like, of all the bands I've talked to, everyone is doing multiple endeavors because of that exact reason. But if we kind of make a disconnect between, like, money and art, that almost in a way, like, frees you up to make the art that you like anyway.
Exactly. Nailed it, Pam.
Ah, yes, well, it's like I'm a journalist.
It was a short and sweet one, but...
Oh, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, man, thanks for having me.
Yay!
Have a great festival.
You too. Woo!
Cool.
Thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode of Why Not Both. If you liked what you heard on this episode, you can like us and subscribe to us on your preferred podcast platform. You can also hang out with us on social media. We are at WNB the podcast, and that's on Instagram and Twitter. And I look forward to sharing more episodes with you. Thank you so much.